So over 10 years ago, I started doing retrospectives on my 10 favorite directors, starting from Christopher Nolan and going all the way up to James Cameron. It started with just me in front of a camera talking for one video in about 10 minutes and moved on to using movie clips with voiceover in multiple parts. All 10 of these guys inspired me to want to make my own movies at important moments in my life. That doesn't mean these are the best directors or that no other directors or movies inspired me, but these are the ones who made me interested in filmmaking. But in the 10 years since starting this, all 10 have made more movies. So let's discuss those. But not just those. There are a few movies that I didn't cover in my original videos because I either didn't want to or couldn't find them. But I want to give them their due time in the spotlight now. So over the course of 2022, I watched or rewatched all these movies and am now ready to give them their whole month in what I will call Norty's Director Catch-Up. And we'll be going by the directors in order that I covered them. We have quite a lot of movies to get through, but for now we'll begin with Christopher Nolan. And we'll start by going all the way back to 2012 to look at the ending to his Batman trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises is my personal favorite of the Nolan Batman trilogy. I thought that at the time, and I still do now, and for this video I specifically rewatched all three back to back to back, and to me this is the most enjoyable one. Several years after the events of The Dark Knight, Bruce Wayne, played by Christian Bale, is retired from being the Batman. However, a new foe named Bane, played by Tom Hardy, wants to take over Gotham, so now Wayne must suit up once again and save the city from the terrorist menace. There's a lot more to it, but I love that the plot is so simple I can describe it in a couple sentences, which for a Nolan movie is a freaking miracle. So back when this came out, and for a few years afterwards, I would say The Dark Knight Rises was underrated because I heard so many people bashing it. It seems this was regarded as one of the great disappointments, which I was like, of course it is. Everyone loved Dark Knight so much that this film could never possibly live up to the hype. However, looking back, I think it was specifically just the people I was watching at the time. Critics loved it, general audiences seemed to love it, making over $1 billion, and even many film fans loved it. It's in the IMDb Top 250. But yeah, the backlash seemed to mostly come from like this small set of nerds and geeks, many of which I was following. I even did a response to one of them on Norty Defends, but looking at the big picture, most people seem to like it. So you know what, I'm not gonna go into all those little nitpicks people were making. How did Bruce get back to Gotham? Batman never quits. Because all those are either nitpicks or were problems with the other movies. So like I said, I rewatched all three movies doing this, and I'm still not a big fan of Batman Begins. It's pretty dull in a lot of places, the action is horribly edited, and the Scarecrow is mostly pointless. It's okay, I respect a lot of what it did, but not one I want to rewatch often. Dark Knight is great. I don't think I'll ever be able to fully get over how freaking hyped it was for me. I remember kids watching it on their phone in homeroom. But the villain's great, the action is great, it's got great themes. There's still stuff I find weird, but it is a great movie. And in my opinion, Dark Knight Rises is just as good. Rewatching all three, I forgot that these movies actually do have a really good sense of humor. They're stereotyped as being gritty and serious, but the characters do have some very good one-liners. As for this movie alone, the action scenes are phenomenal. From the opening on the plane, to the chase after the stock exchange heist, to the finale after Batman Begins, which had some of the worst editing I have ever seen in a big blockbuster. It is amazing how much of an improvement the sequels are. The score is fantastic, and the effects work, most of them practical, are great. And I do love these characters. There's Catwoman, played by Anne Hathaway, who's sort of an anti-hero. I love how underestimated she is. She'll use the fact that she's a woman who looks pretty weak and helpless to her advantage. You never know if you can fully trust her, and I do love that she's so good at escaping prison that she has to be sent to a male one. I like Bane. He's not only smart, but he's also physically imposing. Probably the first one in this trilogy I can actually believe can go one-on-one with Christian Bale's Batman and win. Also, the things he says, I actually don't disagree with parts of it. He's basically saying to get rid of corrupt government officials and for the people to rule.
We take Gotham from the corrupt, the rich, the oppressors of generations who have kept you down with myths of opportunity, and we give it back to you, the people. Gotham is yours. None shall interfere. Do as you please.
He's good at showing that any ideology taken to the extreme can be bad. I also get why more people would follow him than the Joker. I do think the Joker is a better villain overall, but I don't know why so many people follow him when he keeps killing them and his only goal seems to be spread anarchy. Bane at least seems like they're trying to work towards something. I really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Tom Blake. He's just a good dude who wants to do the right thing, and his backstory about growing up in an orphanage gives him a lot of heart. And that right there is the main reason this is my favorite of the three. It has heart. I guess spoiler for Dark Knight, but when Rachel died, it was shocking, but I didn't really get the emotion. Bruce hardly spends any time mourning her, and this, he just looks at a picture of her for a little bit, and it felt much more powerful than anything in Dark Knight. I feel the weight of Bruce needing to escape this prison. I feel the fear of how scary the situation is when everyone is trapped in Gotham with a bomb. But what really hit me was the relationship between Bruce and Alfred. It was built up in the other two, but really comes up a lot here. Alfred did basically become a father figure to Bruce after his parents' death. He wants to help him, he wants what's best for him. He does things like want him to settle down with a woman and even pick him up from a party when his car is stolen. His speech at the end made me cry when I saw it. Michael Caine's performance was so good. And thank you for calling out how stupid the whole making Batman take the fall for Harvey Dent thing was. I thought it was stupid ever since I first saw it in '08. There are a few problems I have. Like the other two, I don't like that they have a second villain. Scarecrow was pointless, Two-Face should have been built up for the next film, and the surprise villain in this feels so forced. There is a bit of a criticism about the Nolan trilogy, how they glorify cops and demonize people in prison, which in the 10 years since the movie ended has become a bit controversial to say the least. I don't think it would have gotten as much crap if it weren't trying to be so realistic, but I'll allow the comic book logic to take over for this. Batman's voice is still dumb in a lot of areas, but it's toned down a little bit, and also Gotham looks way too much like New York. There's literally a part where you can see the under construction World Trade Center. But yeah, overall, I think Dark Knight Rises is great. I do see why people would like The Dark Knight more, but this film just hit me harder. I give it a 9 out of 10. I don't know if I'd say it's underrated anymore, because it does seem most of the backlash came from a small group of nerds that I just happen to latch onto. And even though I'm not a huge fan of Batman Begins, this is a pretty solid trilogy that did a lot for comic book movies and movies in general. So tomorrow we head to the year 2067 to see what might be Nolan's most ambitious movie yet. See you then.